Welcome. Good morning. My name is Justin Viller with the Committee of 70. We are very excited to be joined by Elizabeth Hughes, who is a candidate for the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas. Today, she will be interviewed by Ms. Harris's 12th grade anthropology class at Pittsburgh CAPA High School. And so I'm going to turn it over to you all. Thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate it. I know the storms have created a challenge for you all out there. So thank you for jumping on. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Harris, in your class.
Yeah, thank you so much for arranging this, and thank you, Ms. Hughes, for joining us this morning. I think it would be super helpful if you just started off with a little bit about like what a Court of Common Pleas judge does and why you're interested in that role.
Sure. Thank you for having me and good morning. I'm really privileged to be here and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with some younger possible voters. I know you guys are seniors, so some of you may be 18. This may be some of the first time, I guess you may be first time voters. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and kind of talk about how important particularly judicial races are. And just to give you kind of an overview, if you're not familiar with the Court of Common Pleas and how the courts in Pennsylvania are structured, the courts are structured. We have the magistrate level courts, which are your kind of local courts that are in your neighborhoods, and those are courts where they're kind of small claims, anything under $10,000, landlord tenant issues, maybe like traffic violations, those kind of things. And that would be like your kind of local, there's a lot of those around your areas. You may see that magistrate court, and they may be kind of smaller. You might even see them in kind of like your little neighborhood, like strip mall area or somewhere in like a little kind of just tucked away, a little office, and you might see magistrate district court, and those are where you would go if there's something kind of local that maybe there's a citation or neighbors have a dispute, something like that. Um, and then you have the Court of Common Pleas. That's the county courts, and that's downtown. So the Court of Common Pleas is made up of four divisions. There's family division, criminal division, civil division, and orphans court division. So if any of you have ever seen court, been to court, or if you have family members who may have been in the courts for any kind of reason, those are where there are situations if somebody has a criminal case where they've maybe gotten in trouble, there's misdemeanor, felony kind of charges, they go before the criminal courts, and that can be something where they either go before just a judge or they go before a jury. Family court is, of course, where folks are having issues with, maybe there's a custody dispute where parents are trying to decide who will get custody of a child if parents are getting divorced. Or there's also family court also has the juvenile side where there's juvenile dependency and delinquency. So sometimes if, teenagers and young folks have some issues where they maybe get in trouble and they have to go before the judge down there, that's the court that handles those issues. And also if there's an issue with maybe some safety issues in the home and the court, thinks that maybe the parent maybe can't take care of the child right then, and they want to see what, there's some other opportunities for somebody to help out. There's dependency court. So those are family division. Civil division is when folks have disputes, maybe like contract disputes, or there's an accident, there's maybe a personal injury dispute. Those kind of things happen in civil court. And orphans court it's a funny name, but orphans court kind of handles anything where there's somebody who maybe isn't in charge of somebody else, right? So wills and estates, so when somebody dies, or adoptions can be handled in orphans court as well. Mental health issues are handled in orphans court as well. So those are the four divisions in the Court of Common Pleas. That's the court that I'm running for. Then you have your appellate courts. So any of those decisions where somebody doesn't agree, they can appeal. There's the Commonwealth Court. and the Superior Court. Those are on the same level. Those are courts of appeals. Commonwealth Court does hear some courts, what they call original jurisdiction. So Commonwealth Court hears any court cases that happen to be where governmental entity is a party. So like if there's the city of Pittsburgh would be a party to a case, the Commonwealth Court would hear those cases. And Superior Court will hear appeals from the lower courts. So if there was a issue where somebody didn't agree with what happened in a case in family division or civil division, it would be appealed up to the Superior Court. And then there's the court, the highest court in Pennsylvania is the Supreme Court. And that court is actually the oldest Supreme Court in the country. We have the oldest Supreme Court in the nation. So that's how the courts are structured. So that gives you a little background. And did anyone have any questions about that? Does that make sense to everyone? I know it's a quick one. It's early in the morning, so. But the Court of Common Pleas, and the reason I'm running for the Court of Common Pleas is we have judges in all of those divisions. I've been practicing for 20 years, and I've practiced actually in all of those divisions of the Court of Common Pleas. I practice most of my time in family division, and I'm really passionate about children and families, and most new judges do start in family division. And a lot of times, sometimes we don't have a lot of judges that have that kind of experience, and I do. And I think it's really important for people when they come into family court to have folks who have that experience and knowledge. They deserve, to have people who understand those kind of complex issues, and it's also emotional. And I really think that I have the background and the knowledge to be able to help out sometimes folks. It's that's some of the hardest times that people can go through when they're coming into family court. So it's really important that they have judges who understand and who are not only understand the law, but understand some of the underlying issues that are going on in there. And I've practiced on both sides of that court. So, I'd like to bring my skills to the court. Right now, I practice health law, and I've also practiced on the civil side, criminal side. I've done a little bit of everything. So I'd like to bring my experience to help out the people of Allegheny County.
Okay, we've got a question in the back.
All right. Like questions.
How did you prepare for possibly taking this role?
So how did you prepare for potentially this role? How do you?
Oh, wow. So, I think that all of the experience that you gather as you practice law prepares you. And, I think even once you become a judge, it's a learning, you learn every day. But I, started off even before I was an attorney. I have a background in mental health. So I was a child and adolescent case manager before I became a lawyer. I worked a lot with children and youth, and I ran a youth violence prevention program when I lived in Phoenix for a while. But I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh. I'm from Penn Hills. And I became a lawyer. I went back to law school when I was about 30, and I've practiced a lot of different areas of law. And so I think, I've done. I tried to learn as much as I could and try different things, because I think it's really good to kind of be well balanced. And so I did practice family law for a long time, but I also worked for the county solicitor's office, and I did a lot of mental health law with that. So I did what was called involuntary commitment hearings. So that's, making sure folks get the mental health treatment they need when, they're in crisis. I did a lot of guardianship work, which is making sure folks who, really can't take care of themselves or manage their affairs, get someone who can help them with that. And also, I do health law now. So I tried to get as much experience across a lot of different areas so that I knew different types of law, which there are people who, maybe practice in one area and get really good at that too. And so, there's not one way to prepare. But, just for me, I felt like if I was going to do this one day, I wanted to make sure I had a lot of experience, and kind of, knew some things about different areas because you don't know what court you might end up in. You start off in family division, and I would, if I make the bench, I would like to stay, but you could get assigned to any of those divisions. So you want to make sure that you know something about, how to navigate in all those areas. I also clerked for a judge in the Superior Court. So I think that was also a really good experience because you learn a lot, about really how to think about cases and analyze and get really good at writing. You do a lot of writing in that situation. And so it really helps your writing skills. So that was also a really good experience, and also you're working with a judge every day in that kind of in situation. So any of those kind of situations where you get to clerk, or intern with a judge directly, that's also a really good way to learn, right with a judge and kind of see what they do every day.
What do you think would be the hardest thing about being a judge?
I think, just I know a lot of folks have difficulty moving from that advocate role to that really impartial decision-making role. And I think that is difficult. Just really kind of sitting with some of the decisions, and thinking about those and knowing you're the final decision maker. Whatever you're saying, that is, just really having to be very thoughtful about that, and knowing, like, I'm making this decision and this is really going to affect people's lives. You have to really be thoughtful about that. And so I think that's that can be pretty heavy sometimes. And so I think that you have to really be ready to take that on as a judge, and know how serious and how much gravity there is to that. So I think that's sometimes, I think that's probably the most difficult thing that judges have to deal with, is just knowing that, your decisions are going to be affecting people's lives. So you have to take it very seriously.
One of the things I hear come up sometimes for debate is the idea of setting bail for someone. What's your philosophy on bail?
So yeah, so cash bail. So there's a lot about, debate about cash bail, and I think one of the things that is an issue is that, cash bail can be a situation where it can breed inequity, right? Because you have folks who, it's not necessarily applied in a way that makes sense when you're just putting it out there and saying, and it's applied to, um, if you can pay it, whether you've, committed some, major crime and you deserve to be really in jail or not, you can just pay it and walk free. Whereas somebody who may have done something in a much lesser scale and just can't afford it is going to be sitting in jail. So, there's a lot of inequity that can, flow from just implementing cash bail without really being thoughtful about it. So there's a lot of consideration. It can be useful in some situations, but you really have to go through, I think, a really good balancing kind of test where you have to look at, what's the offense? Is this person a flight risk? Are they a risk? Do they pose a safety risk to the society? And is it going to be, is this person like a repeat offender? Have they skipped out on court multiple times? And is it going to be something where the bail is going to match the offense? Um, Otherwise you just have people languishing in jail for minimal, minor offenses for no reason, and it doesn't make sense. You're clogging up the system. You've got people sitting there who really shouldn't be. It doesn't make any sense. And then you've got people who, really shouldn't be out on the streets just because they can pay this money and they've done something really that's, pretty quite significant. So it can cause a significant imbalance if it's not really thoughtfully applied, and you don't go through those kind of that analysis as to when it should be used and how it should be used.
Sure.
Why shouldn't we vote for the other candidates?
Oh. Did you hear that?
No, I couldn't hear it.
The question was, why shouldn't we vote for the other candidates? Or maybe like, what differentiates you from the other candidates?
So it's not kind of, so there's actually 8 seats open, so you can vote for because
Vote for a lot of people.
you can pick you can vote for 8, you can vote for 1, you can vote for 4, you can vote for look, so you can vote for as many or as few as you want, right? There's 22 people running, so this is where it gets tricky, because you can, you kind of have to do research, right? And that is where you have to really be a responsible voter, and you have to decide what things are important to you on the bench, what kind of qualities that you want to see in a judicial candidate, and you kind of have to get down and do your research. And so that's where you have to learn about the candidates and read about the candidates, and do things like this where you ask questions and you think about, you learn about the court, you learn about what's important, and how it works, and then you kind of match up the candidates with what you think is important. So that, I think that's a good question. So I think it's important. What I think is important, I think experience is very important, because you really need to know the law. You need to know how to analyze the facts in front of you. You need to know how to analyze the evidence in front of you. And I think that comes with a fair amount of experience. Temperament is very important. So how you treat people who come before you, how you treat your colleagues, how you treat, everyone in that courtroom is very important, and everybody deserves to be treated with respect. Cultural competency is important, so that you have the ability to understand people from different backgrounds, people with disabilities, people, just it needs to be fair, and you need to be cognizant of, what perspectives that people are coming to the court with, and you have to be culturally competent. And so, I was the president of the Allegheny County Bar Association, and we are, our mission is to be, we have a mission to be, uh, to embrace, equity, and to, we promote diversity and equity in all of our programming. We have anti-bias training in our programming, and we have, affinity groups that we make sure that we promote, all of our programming, all of our lawyers, we make sure that we have a a a place and a voice for everybody in our association and in profession. And so that makes a difference. And we have, I ran the organization through COVID, and we had a lot of challenges during that situation. And so, we still made sure that membership was maintained, everybody still stuck around. We had input, and we were transparent. So, we want to hear voices in our organization. And so I'm very proud of that. We have an ally program where we made sure that we had employers from around the legal profession take specific pledges to make sure that they promoted diversity and equity within their organizations. And so, this is all a big part of what we do. And so I think that bringing that to the bench and knowing about that, we made sure that the judges have to take bias training. That's one of the things that we implemented as the Bar Association in our CJE, CLE classes. So that's all a part of what we make sure that is part of our requirements. So, that's very important to me to make sure that our courtrooms are fair, unbiased, respectful. And I think that's one of the very most important things that a judge can be and do. So I think that's one of the things that you need to look for when you're looking for, who's going to be a good judge and who's going to serve the people of Allegheny County in the best way possible. Besides, knowledge, experience, and legal acumen is just that temperament and fairness.
So I had one question. I was looking at, and you mentioned the Bar Association. They have they do recommendations, and I just don't know, as a voter, I never know what those recommendations mean or what they're based on.
So the recommendations are based on if they have an actual on the website, they'll tell you what the qualities are when they match those up. And so they actually have a committee. It's a judiciary committee where we all go before the committee and they interview us. But we have an application that we have to do and it's intense. So we turn that in and then we go before the committee and have an interview, and that's what they base that on. But it's also, there's a comment that they have a comment period. So any of the colleagues that know you can comment and, submit comments about, you and their experiences with you in court or, whatever. I mean, so it's thorough. It's a thorough process. So it's pretty intense.
I'm getting a lot of questions from the crowd here. Did you have anything you wanted to ask them? We do have a lot of voters coming up in this group.
We love voters, and it's important. I would say that don't vote in every single election. I mean, it's important. I think a lot of people get caught up in the really big elections, the 4-year, the presidential, but these local elections and the primaries are so important. They dictate what happens at the very, most local level. And those are the things that affect you guys the most when, if you have to end up in court. This is, who you are standing in front of makes such a huge difference, and how you're going to be treated, and whether you're going to be, how you're going to be considered, listened to, respected, what consideration you're going to be given. And that's a big deal. And a lot of people are so upset with the experience they have in court, but they don't vote in these elections. And it's like, we are one of the few states that still elects all of our judges at every level. There's not that many states that do that. Some judges are appointed in different states. And, we are elected to 10-year terms. So once you elect judges, you are stuck with them. You're stuck. So it's significant. And so, you hear a lot of complaining and people are like, I can't believe this judge did this, or I hate this and this is terrible. And, this judge is awful. And my brother went down to court and, or my, sister lost her kids or what, there's all kinds of stuff that, you hear, and judges, they're there. I mean, you're pretty much stuck with a judge for 10 years. So, if you really care about all this stuff, then vote. It's very important. Do your research, vote, and learn about the candidates, learn about what judges do, because they have a serious impact on your life, the lives of others, and policy and law. I mean, case law, it determines what happens in court. Sometimes it determines how things are decided for years and years and years to come. It sets precedent.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree.
Yeah. Any of you interested in becoming lawyers?
There's one hand over here in the
Oh,
corner.
one lone little brave person. I didn't think I had no desire to be a lawyer at all when I was in high school or even college. I mean, it was like at the very end of my um, college career, I thought I wanted to be a profiler, for like an FBI profiler. And I'd gone and taken my exams for grad school. I was a psych major. And then I was like, yeah, I don't think I really want to go to grad school. I don't know what I want to do. I was like at the last week of college and had no idea what I was going to do. Went to my advisor and she was like, "Oh, I think you've been to some of my classes. I think you'd make a good attorney, and your thought process." And I mean, it was the last week of school. What am I going to do with that? So I kind of filed that away in the back of my head somewhere, and worked for about 7 years after that, and then ended up going back to law school at 30. So it was, just kind of. Yeah, I took the circuitous route, but I made it there at some point. So it was a good decision. But it took me a while to get there. So it's never too late.
Yeah.
You change your mind at some
Right.
point.
I always tell them they don't have to know right now, like what they're doing for the rest of their life.
No, not at all. I had no idea. So it took me quite a long time to get to this point. You don't have to know what you're going to do. I didn't know. Yeah, I mean, at 30, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I went to law school and wasn't quite sure what kind of law I wanted to practice. I kind of fell into family law, and the transition from family law to in-house counsel for UPMC. I mean, it doesn't seem logical, but I'm counsel for Children's Hospital and Mercy McGee, so I do a lot of things with children and youth, and so the experience I got in family law translates directly to a lot of the stuff I handle at children's, and it's very useful.
Well, thank you both very much for jumping on. There's a lot of stuff going on with the storms this week. And I know, Ms. Hughes, you're very busy with the campaign. Ms. Harris, they're very busy with the end of school. So we really appreciate you both taking the time out. Once again, the reminder, the election will be held on Tuesday, May 20th. The voter registration deadline is May 5th. Pennsylvania is a closed primary state. So Elizabeth Hughes is running on the Democratic primary. So that means because it's a closed primary state, you have to be a Democrat to vote in Democratic primary. You have to be a Republican to vote in the Republican primary. And then those winners will then go into the general election in the fall. So make sure, register to vote, and we'll see you on the 20th. Thank you very much, everyone. And have a wonderful
Enjoyed
rest of the
it.
day.
Thank you.